Ukraine's F-16s are now in country and have officially entered service, with the type already flying missions. President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke in front of a pair of donated F-16AMs to mark the historic development for the Ukrainian Air Force and his country overall. At the same time, we are also getting our first glimpse of some of the stores the jets are equipped with, including self-protection pylons that will go a long way in helping Ukraine's new Vipers survive in such a complex battle space. In his speech, Zelensky thanked Ukraine's allies, especially Denmark, the Netherlands, and the United States, that helped make this moment possible after years of negotiations and diplomatic and logistical hurdles. The road to receiving F-16s was indeed a long and winding one. Shortly after Russia's all-out invasion began in February of 2022, when Ukraine showed it could hold Moscow's forces at bay and keep its air power from gaining control over much of Ukraine's skies, the need for a Western fourth-generation fighter and the employment of Western munitions and tactics was clear. In May of 2023, after many months of persuasion and diplomatic shuttling, President Joe Biden finally approved the transfer of the US-built jets to Ukraine. This turnaround came after pressure was applied by NATO allies, who are willing to offer their F-16s to Ukraine, as well as other NATO partners, like the UK and France, who wanted to help in giving the war-torn country Western fourth-generation fighters. As it stands, Ukrainian F-16s are now being drawn from a multinational European consortium spearheaded by Denmark and the Netherlands. At the latest count, around 85 F-16s have now been committed to Ukraine. These comprise 24 from the Netherlands, 19 from Denmark, and 12 from Norway, while Belgium says it will supply 30. Norway has also stated they will be sending 10 additional jets to use for spare parts. Greece has also been suggested as a possible source of Vipers in the form of F-16CD Block 30 versions of the aircraft. The 85 jets Ukraine is slated to get are deeply upgraded F-16A and B models that have received the Midlife Upgrade or MLU package. These jets are designated F-16AMs and BMs. The upgrade brings later block F-16CD capabilities to these older jets and includes structural upgrades to extend their service lives. Some of the MLU's main capability enhancements include a new mission computer, color cockpit multifunction displays, upgrades to existing AN APG-66 pulse Doppler radar, wide-angle heads-up display, advanced identification friend or foe or IFF system, ability to use the Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System or JHEMICS, improved hands-on throttle and stick, upgraded color cockpit video and voice recorder, a centralized electronic warfare system upgrade, digital terrain system and upgraded GPS navigation, and improved networking. The fact that the arrival of F-16s has finally come for Ukraine is no doubt monumental for its war-weary Air Force. But as the war zone is stressed heavily in the past, it will be some time, likely a number of years, before Ukraine can come close to unlocking the full range of the F-16's expansive capabilities. It takes years for an F-16 pilot to mature into a fully capable mission leader, and the flow of new pilots will need to remain steady during this time, which has already become a major issue. According to a report by the Washington Post, only 6 Ukrainian pilots have qualified so far to fly the F-16, and the speed of future pilot production remains a point of contention. The army of support personnel it will take to operate these jets somewhat independently will also take a long time to develop and foster. There's no shortcut here. This is just the way it is. Experience is the key to accessing the F-16's full potential. As such, the F-16s were never a silver bullet for Ukraine. What they are is a revolutionary upgrade in the country's air combat capabilities that will increasingly bring more potent weapons and tactics to the forefront of the conflict in the near term and Ukraine's general defense in the long term. That doesn't mean that F-16s are useless in the meantime. That's hardly the case. As they expand their mission breadth, they can provide vital air defense across the territory Ukraine controls, hunting down drones and cruise missiles that threaten critical infrastructure and military capabilities located at every point within its borders. The fact that the F-16AMs were equipped with AIM-9Ms and AIM-120B AMRAAMs in the released videos underscores their initial air defense role. While they lack the capability provided by Active Electronically Scanned Array or AESA radars that equip many new production modern fighters, and are being backfitted to many older F-16s, the jets can still be very valuable in this role. Even Ukraine's MiG-29s have served this purpose with a radar and avionics suite far inferior to what the F-16MLUs have. The F-16s can also work to bring new standoff attack munitions to the fight. These jets use NATO standard bus architecture and software updates that already facilitate most air-launched weapons available in NATO's inventory. Ukraine's JDAM-ERs, GBU-39B small-diameter bombs, AGM-88 high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and ADM-160 miniature air-launched decoys are already integrated with the F-16s. More types of weapons, such as France's Hammer, can be added with relative ease compared to rigging them to work with Soviet-era aircraft. This means we should see new weapons appear on Ukrainian F-16s in the not-so-distant future, especially those that can reach deep into Russian-held territory. And beyond that, the F-16's ability to actually access the full feature set of the NATO-supplied air-launched weapons Ukraine already has, and employ them synergistically with its onboard sensors and data links, is a major advancement. As seen in the video supplied by the Ukrainian government, their pilots are wearing the Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System, or GEHEMIX. This not only provides high off-bore sight targeting of the AIM-9X Sidewinder, should the jets end up carrying that missile, but it also provides a major increase in situational awareness for pilots. It's worth noting that the Ukrainians already have experience working with both the AIM-120 and the AIM-9 in the ground-based air defense application, and the use of the Sidewinder and the AMRAAM in the air-to-air realm with its F-16s means that Ukraine has access to large NATO stocks for air-to-air missiles, instead of depending solely on a dwindling stockpile of Soviet-designed types that equip its tired fleet of MiG-29s and Su-27s. Finally, as we thought may be the case, the F-16s now in Ukrainian hands are equipped with the Pylon Integrated Dispensing System Plus, or PIDS Plus system, which likely also includes the Advanced Electronic Combat Integrated Pylon System Plus, or ESIPS Plus enhancement, both of which are bolt-on self-defense systems made by Terma in Denmark. Each PIDS Plus pylon also sports flare and chaff dispenser buckets, greatly expanding the F-16's internal expendable countermeasure capacity. It also features variants of the AN/AAR-60 missile launch detection system, which has 3 separate staring optical sensors on each pylon. The ESIPS Plus pylons carry the 3 AN/AAR-60 sensors, but do not have the flare and chaff dispensers. Instead, they have an AN/ALQ-162V6 radio frequency countermeasure system from Northrop Grumman installed. This system provides jamming support against radar threats, like SAM systems and incoming air-to-air missiles. Typically, a Viper would carry 1 PIDS Plus and 1 ESIPS Plus to provide a wide mix of warning and countermeasure capabilities against infrared and radar-guided threats. Both types of pylons are also designed to work with the AN/ALQ-213 Electronic Warfare Management System, another Terma product found on the F-16MLU. This system provides visual alerts of threats that can be shown on a fixed display in the cockpit or through GEHEMIX, as well as indicated via various types of 3D audio warnings. Altogether, these enhanced pylons can greatly improve the situational awareness and survivability of the jets carrying them, and they have proven so useful that the US is obtaining similar pylons for its aging F-16s. Danish and Dutch F-16s are equipped with the PIDS Plus and ESIPS Plus systems, so it makes sense that they're now being ported over to Ukraine. Based on the airborne intercept light on the left side of the cockpit, the jet shown with the Terma self-defense pylon in the video is an ex-Danish example. Overall, these pylons are a critical upgrade that is very well suited for F-16s operating anywhere near the highly complex air defense overlay Russia has deployed that reaches far across the front lines. For instance, the combination of PIDS Plus and ESIPS Plus can provide automatic warning and protection against shoulder-fired heat-seeking missiles during low-level operations, and warning and jamming against radar-guided threats with much longer range and higher reach. The overall enhanced electronic warfare suite can also help in detecting and targeting surface-to-air missile sites and employing harms or standoff munitions against them in the suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses roles. But these systems will not protect Ukraine's F-16s while they are on the ground, which could be a real challenge as they are now Russia's top targets. Ukraine has been working to provide infrastructure suited for F-16 operations at specific bases, some of which can help conceal and protect the precious fighters. But that may not be enough. These jets will likely be moved around in a constant targeting shell game like their Soviet-designed stablemates. Ukraine has gotten very good at employing these tactics, along with deploying very realistic decoys to confuse Russian targeters. Keeping only a limited number of Vipers in the country at any given time could also help preserve the fleet. Even constantly rotating the jets out to bases in bordering NATO countries may be needed. Under such a concept, the jets could fly unarmed into Ukraine from, say, Poland for instance, land, arm, refuel, and then fly a number of sorties before refueling again in Ukraine, and then flying back to the neighboring country unarmed. Regardless, one thing is for certain: Ukraine will do all it can to make sure Russia doesn't destroy the F-16s where they are most vulnerable, sitting idle on the ground. So, there you have it. Nearly 2.5 years after Russia began its blitz, Ukraine has now officially joined the F-16 club. But the way forward will not be easy. Building up a skilled cadre of pilots and maintainers will be a major hurdle among many others. Still, challenges aside, the arrival of F-16s wearing Ukrainian colors equates to a whole new level of weapons capability for the battle-weary Ukrainian Air Force.